and welcome to today's Lunch and Learn session with Maytech. My name is Alice Chance and I'm Head of Student Operations over at Manchester and Leeds Codes. And today I'm joined by Ollie Monks from Maytech. I'm going to hand it over to you now, Ollie. Just to let everyone know, we will be taking questions. We're doing answers for those, so feel free to use the comment section to ask anything you want and we'll go through all of those at the end. And Ollie's got a nice little presentation that they're going to show you now. Okay.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Alice. Can you see my screen? Is that all right to share, or is anything else to do?
It's in. There we go.
Proper professional setup. That's amazing. Thanks so much, Alice.
No problem.
Yeah. And thanks everyone for joining, whether you're watching this live or in the future when you're watching this and record as well. I hope this is a good use of your time. So as Alice mentioned, my name is Ollie Monks. I'm working for a company called Maytech. You might have come across us in some way, but my hope and aim for the rest of this session will be for you to know a bit more about who we are, what we do, and then specifically some of the opportunities we think could be great for you once you finish your course with Manchester Codes as well. So you might already have some questions. If you do, please do put them into the comments. If I can answer them as we go, I will. If not, I'll be on the hot seat and Alice can be your person to ask all the questions as well. Hopefully I'll give you an answer on the call as well. So that's the kind of aim for the next lunch session, if you like. Without further ado, I'll get into it. So first of all, I suppose, is a bit more of an introduction about who we are as Maytech. And as soon as you're a growing organization, you have to turn these things into some sort of acronym, don't you? Or some sort of cliche way of describing who we are. Why Maytech? And obviously we've turned Made into some kind of an acronym. So for us, stands for modernize, to accelerate, to drive, or to enable. So if I was going to give that more context, who are Maytech? So we're actually a technology consultancy company. So that will mean that we don't necessarily build all our own products. We're not that kind of technology company, but actually we go into other organizations and actually help them to improve their tech capability, if you like. One of the biggest differences, I suppose, about Maytech to most organizations that are out there is that all of our, we would call them clients, being a consultancy, are in the public sector. So we work predominantly with government departments, lots of ones that you've already seen, I'm sure, in the news or in different parts of the world, and kind of large councils. So whether that's in Lincoln or Hackney Council, etc. I'll show some more of those in a slide up and coming. But it's really, really important for us to be working in the public sector. The work that we do ultimately is on the front line, a kind of digital front line, to really improve the public services that we have in the UK. And that is all within the UK in terms of our remit at the moment, at least. And we've been growing a lot. So we went public, a kind of IPO, if you like, at the end of last year. Our trajectory of people joining Maytech is really growing at a fast rate. So it's a really exciting time for us to be to be a part of it, I suppose. And especially if you, and I'm assuming you do, if you're watching this, have some sort of engineering background or aspirations to get into software engineering in some way. Predominantly, the majority of our people that we're going to be looking to hire and have hired will be engineers. So you're absolutely in luck. We want more of you. Hopefully we can convince you that this would be a great place for you to take your next step as well. So that's kind of broadly what we do. And to explain a bit more of the acronym, which I probably did unhelpfully at the beginning, some of the work that we might do with some of those clients. So some of that might actually mean that we go in and we deliver a particular service or product that we help to build with a government department. Some of it might fit what you might already have a bit of a stereotype about government departments or public sector organizations, that actually maybe not everything is up to date or as modern as it should be, considering we're in 2022. And there's a whole amount of work for us to do to help them basically transform systems that might have been built for 15, 20, 30 years ago that really just need to be bringing not only into now, but actually need to be fit for purpose in the next 15, 20 years as well. And what do those technologies look like? So we do a lot of that work with those teams. There's a lot of upskilling that we will then pass on to those teams that work in government departments or in councils. So there's a real kind of long-term view to the kind of work that we do with those organizations as well, and some really meaningful work too. So as I mentioned, there's lots of government departments, lots of public sector organizations. I'm sure you'll recognize some. Some you might have had interactions with yourself already. I think that's naturally the case at different points in your life that you will do. And these are the kind of organizations that we work with. To give you some examples of the kind of work that we do, I think one of my favorite ones, to be honest, I was not involved with it directly at all, but I was super proud really to be part of Maytech when it was happening, seeing the news, everything that's happening in Ukraine, impossible to avoid. There was an initiative that was brought together by the Department for Levelling Up Housing Communities about encouraging or creating a way for families or people across the UK to effectively offer to house Ukrainian refugees who are leaving the country. That, I think, in the end had about 150,000, certainly the last time I looked, of people around the UK who could do that. And there was a whole infrastructure, digital infrastructure, that was needed to be built to put that together. Maytech were the team that were brought in to build that and do that really quickly, and that was awesome. So that's the kind of thing that we could do. It's not the kind of thing we do every week, obviously, but there's a huge amount of projects that we're working on throughout the year with lots of different organizations, whether it's looking at with DVLA and everything else that comes with that and their digital offering, whether it's with the Department for Work and Pensions or the Home Office. We do huge amounts of work and some really, really cool initiatives as well. So happy to share more after this too. But this just give you a flavour of who we work with. And how do we work, I suppose, is probably the next big important question when it comes to Maytech. A big part of what we do really is from our roots of being a smaller company. We were a startup at one point years ago, and a lot of those kind of methodologies and techniques certainly have stayed true to who we are and how we work. We do a lot of test-driven development. We do a lot around kind of pair programming, and that's a big part of how we work, certainly at Maytech. And I think more broadly, there's a real kind of transparent culture, if you like, at Maytech. We're really big on transparency. We're really big on feedback, and that ultimately kind of leads into how we actually do our work as an engineering capability, but also just as an organization in general. One example I can give, which is not on this slide, but if you haven't already, I really would recommend, it's one of the best things I think actually really about our culture, is we have it all in our own GitHub. So if you want to know what life is like at Maytech, for better or for worse, in terms of what policies we have, what opportunities there are, it's all you can see for someone who's not working at Maytech is as much as we can see for someone working in Maytech as well. It's entirely there. So we have all of that, and I think that's a really strong thing about who we are and how we do our work, really. All right, so that's a bit about Maytech. I'm sure there's stuff I haven't covered. Happy to do that afterwards also. But as part of that, we also mentioned how much we're growing, how much we want to really invest in our engineering teams, but actually much broader than that. And one way that we do that is through our academies. So for the last 4 or 5 years, we've had a software engineering academy. We've actually just recently got our first cohort for a design and research academy. And there are more to come, which I'll explain in a moment as well. And so that's a really big way for us to make sure that, I think you'll get this from every organization now, I'm sure. But I think for us, especially when you're working in the public sector, it's so important to have a team that is really representative of the people that you are ultimately building products and services for in the public sector. And so making sure we have that is really important. Giving people a foot in the door into our tech industry is something that as an entire company we're really passionate about. And there's lots of ways we can do that, but one of them is also through our academies. And so that's something that, I would love to share a bit more with you now. So you might have come across other academies or boot camps for anyone you're with now at the moment. For us, this is slightly different in that this is not something where we help you to find a job afterwards. This is a full-time job from day one. So if you get onto our Maytech Academy from day one, you're given a full salary. You become a permanent member of Maytech. But for the first 12 weeks, you are within the academy where you are not working with a particular client. Your first 12 weeks are all about your learning, which is awesome. You're paid to learn for the first 12 weeks. So, and there's a real mix in terms of what the focus is. So some of it will be about your technical ability, absolutely. And there's things around actually, supporting those and building that skill set of how do you pick up new tech skills. It's not necessarily that we're looking for one particular or experts in one particular coding language, if you like, or one particular tech stack. For us, particularly in a consultancy, it might be that you get exposure to a lot of different technologies. So actually, what's your skill like to be able to pick up and develop new ones that, depending on which project that you're placed into. And then on the other side of that, there's a lot of focus on the kind of softer skills, if you like. We're ultimately a consultancy. At some points, you're going to be working with, it might be other engineers, other members of teams in other organizations, and what skills are required to really do that well as well from a Maytech perspective. So I think a real kind of broad range of things we cover, and an amazing course, really, considering what we do in 12 weeks. It's entirely done remotely, so we do have offices across the UK. We've got offices in Manchester, obviously, but also in London, Bristol and Swansea, and it's delivered entirely remotely. So really, I suppose for this year and most likely into the future, it doesn't really matter where you're based. But if you are someone who would really enjoy actually going to the office for a certain amount of time every week or month, you have the option to do that whenever you like. All right. So it's always one of those things that it sounds good, Ollie, but like other people have, what other people say? In other words, I'd be able to bring someone with you today, but happy to connect you to people after this if you'd like. But just to give you a little bit more of a human touch about it, what are people who've actually been through our academy saying? I think one of the things that are really cool about the people that you see on the screen here is that these are people who actually graduated our academy 2-3 years ago, and they're all still with us at Maytech now. And they've actually, I think, all of them had at least one promotion. I think most of them had 2, if not 3 promotions since they've graduated the academy. So this is not something that we want to kind of take you through the academy and close opportunities down. Not at all. This is actually something for us to really, we want to give you the best pathway through and up and to build your tech career for as long as it makes sense for Maytech and for as long as it makes sense for you. We want that to be the case here. So there's lots of stuff there. There's a real, I suppose, excitement about joining Maytech, and a real, yeah, I mean, you can see some of the quotes here, right, in terms of enjoyment of our network, the engineers that we have at Maytech. Yeah, we're really kind of proud to be doing it and proud of our engineers that come through it as well. So hopefully by this point you're like, sold, Ollie, I'm definitely in. It's a no-brainer. How do I join? What's the application process? Well, I'm so glad you asked. So there's 4 stages broadly in total. There's a kind of application form, which is not a kind of, it's really not arduous or strenuous application form. It mainly is just about your personal details. We might want to know broadly, if, have you come through Manchester Codes, for example, or how did you find out about it? Where are you based? Things like that are useful for us to know, but don't really have much bearing at all on the decision we take, just to start the process. We then have a coding test. So this is something I'm sure you already have gone through and be used to if you're looking at other jobs at the moment as well. This will be no different. It's got 3 different kind of challenges within it. And if you pass that coding test, there'll then be a kind of phone interview, which will most likely be with myself. So hopefully you'll be thinking that's a good thing. If not myself, it'll be with another member of the team for no more than 20 minutes, most likely closer to 15. And I think an important thing for us that we're doing this time around is that we'll be sending the questions ahead of that interview as well. We're not looking to catch people out. We want to give you the best possible opportunity to really show the best of yourself. So there'll be probably 3 questions, and we'll let you know what they are before you join the call as well. And then one final stage. So at the moment we call it the introduction days. We might actually change the name, but they are these effectively kind of last stage kind of group days, basically. So what we'll do is we'll pair you and maybe one other candidate with one of our engineers, and you spend the day learning something completely new together. So lots of pair programming. You might have one interview during that day, and that's it. At the end of that, we'll make a decision on whether or not we want to invite you to the academy, and hopefully you'll be part of the Maytech kind of family from there. So that's broadly how it works. The timing is great if you are interested in that. Our next academy starts on October the 3rd. And as my next slide is going to say, in a really not subtle sense, applications open really soon. So if you're interested to join this year, then now is a great time to be looking at that, and a great time to ask any questions you've got. If it's something in the future, we are looking at then having next one will probably be January, at end of January, I would imagine it will be when it goes live as well. So if you want more time, that's also something we can cater for, and there's lots of ways that you can stay in touch with us if you'd like to wait a bit longer on that decision too. And things to be confirmed, but just to put on your radar, we are also looking at a data engineering academy, which might go live at some point this summer. But as soon as I know, I'll let you know. So yes, that's kind of how the process works. Applications open on the 23rd. I should just change that and say in all capital letters. It's Thursday, this Thursday. All applications open, and they're going to be open for 10 days up until the Monday, the 4th of July is when you'll have the chance to apply. So, and we hope to finish the process by middle of August. You'll get a chance to know, whether or not you've been successful, and then and get moving from there. So yeah, thank you very much for listening, paying attention during your lunch. Really appreciate it. And then yeah, back to you, Alice, and happy to answer any questions that you've got.
Thank you, Ollie. That was great. That was very informative. Yeah, so feel free, anyone, to ask any questions. I do have some questions that have been pre-submitted to ask you, Ollie. So I'll start with those ones. So what's the say if somebody what the October one is going to be too soon for them to join, what's the best way to stay up to date with like vacancies or current vacancies that you might have?
Yeah, great chat. So at the minute, it should be on there. So if you go onto our Academy's kind of website on our the overall MadeTech website, we've got a job posting base which is called Join Our Talent Pool. So that's people who in that exact same situation actually aren't sure if they want to apply for this one, but do want to stay in touch. If you kind of submit some of the details on there, again, it's really light. It's basically just name, email address, how soon you're thinking to apply, and then every time those applications open, we'll reach out directly and let you know. Cool. So that's probably the best way to do it.
Okay, great. And how many do you do a year, or is it a bit?
So it can vary in terms of I suppose demand in the business, but generally speaking, it'll be 3 a year.
Okay, wicked. And is there anything you particularly like to see during interviews and during the application process?
Yeah, good question. I think so. We're not, by definition, we're not looking for experts, and we're not looking for like a really high technical detail. That's almost, that's just really not. This is what it's designed for necessarily. Yeah. So, we don't want. It's not for anyone who's really had a lot of work experience in this before. We don't expect a lot before you enter the academy, because we want to help train you and help you develop when you're here and with us. I think other things that can help you stand out certainly are around, it could be to the motivation in the public sector, and the work that entails is always a good thing for us, but also for you, making sure you're going to enjoy it as much as we hope you will. In terms of that recruitment process, there'll be some parts of it in terms of how you work with other engineers is a really interesting skill. A lot of people that we find might be like yourselves, Manchester Codes, might be self-taught, might have done an online course or a boot camp, but the final day is probably the first time they actually have an experience actually doing coding with somebody else or pair programming, and it's can feel quite weird at first, and actually kind of think about what you kind of how to approach that. It would be a good thing. But yeah, broadly speaking, we're just really here for people who've got a passion for that kind of technology, to learn more, to help it contribute to society in that respect. That'll get you a long way in our recruitment process.
Cool, great, thank you. And I've had a couple of questions come in. So if you apply now but don't get to place sort of on that process, can people reapply them for the next one, or do you have like a cooling off period where you have to wait for people to reapply, or what's the sort of process with that?
Yeah, no cooling off period. I know we've had that before actually, where people have applied for whatever reason, not been successful, or it might be that one area they just need to develop a bit more. And we generally, where we can't promise it in detail for everybody. That would be not fair expectation, but we do try and give feedback as much as we can. People have come back and then second time around got the role, got a place in our academy. So we actively encourage that. So long as it's good for you. Yeah.
Cool, great, thank you. And Irfan has asked, how many people do you take on the academy on every intake? And Will has asked a similar question.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks both for the questions. So that's something that varies a little bit in terms of the demand or where the business has been at. But as I mentioned at the beginning, that we are really kind of growing quite a lot at the minute. So in terms of every intake, it will vary anywhere between 10 and 24. But
okay, cool. So quite a few.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And I've got a question. You've got the offices, but you are just remote, aren't you? So you don't expect people to be going in.
No, there's no certainly for the academy, there's no expectation. And I think that's something that's obviously been a changing way of work for MadeTech generally, where before the pandemic, that's going into all the cliches, there was probably more of a need to make sure that you could be in an office certain times every week, for example. That's no longer the case, certainly from the majority of our clients at the moment. So that's not something that we kind of see as a priority when we're hiring for people. And yeah, to directly answer your question, it's not. We'll have had and are having at the moment people who will do the academy entirely remotely for the full 12 weeks.
Oh, okay, cool.
But we are going to have some people that actually might want to meet up once every couple of weeks and all do some kind of coding in person together. If you'd like to do that, you also have the ability.
Oh,
Both
nice.
are fine.
I think it's nice when you're sort of at the beginning start of your career to be in an office with people and have that nice open communication without having to wait for someone to reply to a message.
yeah, I'll get lost in Slack.
Yeah,
very true.
Exactly. Cool. Has anyone else got any other questions? You really went through it all.
Awesome.
I guess one thing I wanted to know was, like the students at Java, like they sort of learn JavaScript whilst they're with those JavaScript, Node, and React is sort of like their core tech stack, and then is that what they'd be doing in this role, or would it sort of be like what team they're placed in and sort of what they learn within the 12-week academy, or sort of how does that work?
Yeah, really cool question. So I would say, all of it's going to be really useful. So definitely anyone watching this shouldn't feel like it's something that they're not going to be able to use or put into place.
Yeah.
That's certainly far from that. I think one of the emphasis we'll have in the academy, or we do have in the academy, is not on a particular language, but I mentioned before your ability to pick up new things. And I think, without going into all the detail of it, that at different points in the academy we might look to switch things up, or we might say, actually, how do we apply this completely different language and what that might look like. So that's something we definitely would look to help people to develop. And this is not something we expect from academy graduates, but I think when we look at how we develop engineers, years into Maytech, we want to develop kind of polyglots, right? And some people who can then, I think beyond that, then in terms of other languages and what you'd utilize, you're right. Some of it all will really kind of depend on the client project and, what technology and tech stack we'll want to be kind of using to build. One of the things we're doing and actually developing as a company is we've got a team basically that looks after our scheduling. So in kind of layman's terms, they're a team that once we get new projects that come through, and it's okay, we need 10 engineers or we need 20 engineers or whatever with this kind of skill set or whatever it might be, having a better view for us as a company to say, awesome, well, we've got Ben, Irfan, Will, who have got these technologies already, and it might be JavaScript or whatever it might be. So we can kind of match up basically the projects with the skill sets and like a skills matrix of here's what they've got.
Nice.
So we're making sure we're kind of tailoring it not only to where our engineers are at now, but also as much as we can to whatever their kind of development plan is. So if you want more exposure on a particular technology, can we match that really as well from a project perspective?
Cool. I'm making nice T-shaped people. That's
exactly.
Cool. Yeah. Darren has asked if you can share the GitHub link, which I will get from you after this and send it over to you. I'll send it over to everyone actually. Will has asked a question. I was also wondering, is the tech test a live demo in front of yourself/colleague, or a task given a designated amount of time to complete? So, for example, like building a website.
Good question. The latter. So, yes. Yeah. So the latter for the coding test, very much the latter. So it won't be like building a website, but it'll be more kind of, particular kind of coding challenge. That's in your own time. You'll have a certain period of time to do that and submit it. I suppose where it will be closest to the first part of that, what we'll ask in terms of a live demo, so to speak. We don't necessarily ask for that, but in that final stage I mentioned on the introduction day where you might do some pair programming with one of our engineers, that's probably where you'll be close to that, where you might then be asked to walk through your code with some members of our team, not that necessarily as a right or wrong, but so we can start to get a better idea of how have you approached that problem, or why did you build it in that way, or and just to get a bit more kind of depth of insight, I suppose, about your approach. But yeah, that's how we'll do it.
Okay, cool. Thank you. And I've just remembered we actually have two members of our teaching team who work for Maytech. So if anyone has any questions about what it's actually like to work as a developer there, we've got Matt Edwards and Ian, whose last name has just completely escaped me, who I'm sure would be more than happy. So Matt actually did our boot camp last year. I think.
Amazing.
Yeah, and then he got a job, but then he moved over to Maytech, and I think there's another person who works there as well. So yeah, we've got lots of Manchester Coast people within Maytech. If anybody wants to ask any questions to them, just send me a message and I can put them in touch. So I guess the next steps would be I'll make sure I resend the link to apply over to everyone.
Please do.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll get some of our lovely bootcamp students
We'd
in
love
your
that.
next cohort. Yeah,
we'd love that, and I'll make sure I send the GitHub link over to you as well.
Oh, perfect. Cool. Well, thank you everyone for attending today. If anyone does have any other questions or anything else they want to ask, just feel free to pop me a message. Feel free to, I'm sure Ollie wouldn't mind you adding him.
Not at all. Go for it.
Cool. Well, thank you everyone. I hope everyone gets to enjoy the sunshine if it's sunny where you are, because it is here. Yeah. But yeah, enjoy the rest of your afternoons, everyone. And thank you for joining us today, Ollie.
My pleasure. Thanks, Alice. And thanks everyone for joining. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. Thanks.
Bye-bye.